All right, thank you everyone who is joining us for our virtual training for the Aerospace Challenge. My name is Danique. I'm one of the event interns working this event. We also have Keith here with us from Honeywell, who's going to be one of our head judges. He's going to be presenting some of the information to you today. As far as the Fiesta Bowl team, we have Andy Western, Eric Barkium, and Dan Hobika as our chairs and assistant chairs. Ray Artigue is going to be one of our event board of directors liaison, and then Angel and myself are on the Fiesta Bowl event staff. For the Honeywell team, we have Mike Stewart, Bob Rasmussen, and Keith Hughes. And then from ASU Polytech campus, we have Brittany Martin and Hope Parker. And then here, Keith will take over and kind of introduce himself and explain to you guys what the Aerospace Challenge is for 2018.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yes, Keith Hughes. I'm a retired Honeywell employee and one of the people who came up with this crazy mission. This is the second year that we've done this mission. We change it periodically just to keep up with events. So the primary purpose of the Phoebus logistic mission is to provide a sustainable base for a colony of 24 people in 10 years. You need to provide a written description of the landing site, the sequence of launches, and the sequence of construction. Now, the message to take away here is up to 24 people in 10 years. It's much easier to have 2 or 4 or 6 people on site and robots do the work than it is put 24 people up on day one. The other thing is this is very much a case of planning and teamwork. The object of the exercise is to work out how you're going to solve the problem. Next slide. There is a secondary mission. The secondary mission is to develop the infrastructure to support command, control, and communications for robotics and humans on Mars. You need to provide a description of the infrastructure on Phoebus only. I stress Phoebus only. This is the infrastructure on the moon Phoebus to communicate with Mars, but there is no infrastructure put on Mars. Provide a written description of the location. The best place to put it, obviously, is with some visibility towards Mars. And provide a written description of the skills, sequence of launches, and sequence of construction for C3. In other words, in your launch sequence, you need to not only build a space base on Phoebus, but also provide the materials to support your secondary mission. Next slide, please. Okay. So to enter, you go to the Fiesta Bowl website and fill in an application form. You need to come up with a team name. Most teams are actually quite creative with their names. The students' names and the coaches' names, T-shirt size for each student and the coach. A team photograph is optional, but it's highly desirable. A media release form. The teams consist of 3 to 5 students. 5th through 8th grade, they can be a mix of grades, they can be all the same grade, it really doesn't matter. The important thing is there's a deadline of November 25th to get your entry in. Next slide. Okay, so there are 3 dates to choose from for you to enter the competition: Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in January 22nd through 24th. We'll do our best to accommodate your first choice, but we want to keep roughly even numbers of teams on each day, so we may have to shuffle you around, so a second choice is always desirable to help us out. The teams will be notified of the competition date in December, so you'll have time to plan. Typically the competition will start at 9 AM and conclude around about 4 PM, plus or minus an hour. If there's not many teams, it'll finish early. On a really bad day, it could be a little after 4 o'clock. Registration opens at 8 o'clock. Please be prompt. There is work you need to do to get organized and ready for the 9 o'clock start. So the day will include registration. There'll be a team of judges coming around. There will be entertainment for the teams when they're not actively participating. Lunch is provided, and there will be an awards ceremony at the end of the day. Okay, so the competition will be held at ASU Polytechnic, which is at Williamsfield. If you look at the map, it's the bottom right-hand corner. The easiest way to remember it is it's the Williams Airport is right next to it. So that airport is literally across the road. So, okay, so each project should include a physical model up to 1 meter base. The model should fit in an imaginary 80 centimeters cube. I added the word imaginary this year because some coach last year tried to work out how to fit a 1 meter base inside an 80 centimeter cube that they were building. So what we're trying to say is the model you build upon the base, which does not have to be 1 meter, it could be smaller, must fit inside dimensions of an 80 centimeter cube. You do not have to build a cube. The mission pack should include the team name, the mission number, and team member names, very similar to the mission patches you see for NASA when they do their space launches. It should not exceed 30 centimeters diameter. We request you provide a presentation and display board. These are typical freestanding boards you put on the table, a summary of each category and the project schedule on that board. That is very helpful for the judges as they go around, just to get an overview of what you are doing. A written report includes how the International Phoebus Space will operate as a society and evolve as Phoebus Space is constructed. In other words, you need to show a timeline from day 1 to year 10 as to how the base is going to evolve. Need to show expense receipts. Your expenses should not exceed $50. We'll talk about more of that in a minute. Next slide. Okay, so the project is to construct a scale model of an international logistics mission to colonize Phoebus. As we said, the base must support 24 people within a 10-year period, and it'll be supported by up to 9 launches per year from Earth. The purpose is to plan and establish a sustainable base on Phoebus with minimum support from Earth. Develop the infrastructure for command and control, that's the secondary mission. Most important, each launch can transport 6 people or cargo. They're not interchangeable, it's people or cargo. A module 3.5 meters diameter and a length of 10 meters. You cannot mix and match. The maximum cargo weight per launch is 30 metric tons. Next slide. Okay, so the physical presentation, each team should produce a model. It can be up to, as we said earlier, 1 meter square base, 80 centimeters cubed. A lot of teams think that the main project is the model, but really it's the documentation, how you arrive at the model. In the suggested schedule, which is in the material you've probably seen, we suggest you do the model last, not first, because you need to basically plan what the model is going to contain. The model must not, and base must not exceed size requirements indicated above. You get penalized for points if it's too big. The interior design and scale drawings should be done in metrics. Build a scale diagrams of your habitation module, anything else that you're building in there. Indicate the time phasing of the base per year. In other words, you may want to do a scale drawing of the first year, maybe the 3rd year, maybe the 5th year, to show some evolution of the base. Mission patch, team name, mission number, etc. should not exceed 30 centimeters. That's a repeat. You've got to give a name for the Phoebus base, and some of the teams in the past have been quite creative with that. And as we said earlier, put a display board up to summarize each category and project schedule. Next slide. So under base design requirements, you should put a written report including the following: the habitation modules, recreation modules, your source of power, landing and launch sites, emergency plans, food production storage modules, and the secondary mission modules. Next slide. The physiological factors. Essentially, what you've got to do is provide a written description of the following areas: the air, what you breathe, how you cope with gravity, your food supplies, shielding from radiation, what you're going to do for a source of water, how you're going to handle the temperature extremes, the circadian rhythm, it's not a 24-hour day there, where you're going to locate the base, and how you're going to handle waste. Next slide. Okay, so in setting up the base, you need to look at your society and how it's going to evolve. So, what are going to be the personal qualifications of the astronauts going there? How are they going to be organized? A background of culture. Sometimes people have just one nation contributing, sometimes they have half a dozen nations contributing. What are you going to do in terms of medical care, in terms of accidents, etc., etc.? What job assignments are you going to give your astronauts? Do they do one job only, or are they multitasking? Art and aesthetic values, how are you going to keep them occupied? Recreation and module plans, language and communication. All these things are important when you're setting up society to decide how the base is going to be run. Next slide. Project requirements, written presentation. You need to describe the building of your base in a written presentation. We will say later a 3-ring binder divided into sections makes it much easier for the judges to evaluate the models and the presentations. All written presentations for the model must be in hard copy. You should address both aspects of primary and secondary missions. Next slide. Okay, so the competition will take place over 3 days, each team just going on one of those 3 days. The teams will be scored with several panels of judges. The judges will be scoring based on the following categories. So these categories listed here are how you should divide up your presentation material. 3-ring binder, put in a separate section, each for physical presentation, logistics planning, base design, physiological factors, Phoebus Space Society, primary and secondary mission. That makes it much easier for the judge to just tap through your documentation and take a look at it. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is giving you an overview of the points. So you can see that physical presentation is worth 35 points. You can read the rest here. The point is that there are these categories which you are judged on for a total of 200 points. There's also 2 honorable mention categories. I forget what they are, but it's something like the base I'd most like to live on, and there's another category as well. And there's 3 Kids' Choice Awards. The children participating in the teams can go around and look at the other entries, and there are 3 categories that they can choose, like the best team name, etc., etc. So they can nominate rival teams, not themselves, for an award, which is given out on the day. The honourable mention awards are given out on the day. The other first 6 categories are used to judge the 2 win teams for that day, which go forward to the finals. Next slide. So each team of judge will spend approximately 5 to 7 minutes with each team, asking them a variety of questions. 2 teams with the highest scores from each day will move to the final competition. The advancing teams will leave their models and documentation with the competition organisers for safekeeping, and the bottom line is so they're not modified. So no changes were allowed to materials model or the inclusion of an audio-visual aid between winning the preliminaries and going to finals. Obviously, when you go to finals, you can practice your presentation, but it's based on what you do. So number 1 tip is, if you're fortunate enough to win, make sure you have a copy of the documentation back home, because you're going to be leaving what you present on the day. Next slide. Okay, so the finals consist of 6 teams. Each will make a 10-minute presentation to a panel of judges. Prior to the presentation, the judges will review the models and the documentation and award each team up to 5 points. You get 31 points for each oral presentation. In the event of a tie, the judges will be asked to rank the finalists. That's based on the greatest score from the preliminaries, essentially. Important thing with a presentation, if you do get the finals, is that the expectation is each of the team members will participate in the finals. So if there's 5 team members and 10 minutes, each should do approximately 2 minutes. We don't hold you the 2 minutes, but we expect them, rather than just one lead, to do all the talking for 9 minutes and the others just introduce their names. So we're looking for a team solution to these problems. Next slide. Okay, so this is probably the important slide with the takeaway. There is no right solution for this problem. When we came up with the problem, we basically did not reverse engineer it or engineer it. It's basic, so basically you're going to be judged on the day on creativity, originality, and research. That's key. You need to do a lot of research to find out what Phoebus is like, the period of orbit of the moon, the gravity, etc., etc. Teams can spend up to $50 maximum on the project. Receipts are required. 3D printers are not permitted throughout the design process. We have had some teams do this, and it kind of gives an unfair advantage for those who can afford it. So we basically bring it down to the lowest common denominator. The use of computers, tablets, mobile devices, etc. in the presentations are not permitted. That means you can still use them to put together your documentation, print things out, do printed charts and things like that, but we're not allowing visual aids as part of your model, etc. The use of recycled materials is encouraged. That keeps the cost down, and it's good for the planet. A few tips. Research requirements, make assumptions, estimate, plan, and schedule and document. State your assumptions. Communicating your thought process to the judges is key. An example I give, and it may be in the notes here, I forget now, is, actually I think it is, one thing you can do is look at the number of astronauts you have, how many calories they consume a day, what that represents in terms of food, volume, and weight, and plan your storage and processing accordingly. There have been some teams who basically just say, hey, we call NASA every 7 days and order a meal delivery. That is not a practical solution for a distance that far. Okay, so I would stress as a judge, you don't have to be right, you don't have to be wrong. If you come up with an assumption and come up with the reasons for that assumption, you will get some credit for making that assumption, even if in the judge's eyes it is wrong, based on their experience and knowledge. The fact that you tried to plan, and you came up with some documentation to show it, you get some credit. If the assumption is good, obviously you get far more credit. So make sure your process makes sense, and please read the guidelines. Next slide.
All right, so for prizes and awards, all participants will receive a t-shirt and a certificate and a program from the challenge, and then the finalists will receive a team plaque. 12 teams will receive the honorable mention prizes for each day, 4 for each day, and then 9 teams will receive a Kids' Choice Award, which are 3 of the preliminaries each day. For the grand prize, they will win a VIP trip to the U.S. Space and Rocket Space Center Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. It's a 5-night adventure, and so that will be an all-expense-paid trip for those kids. And they will also be on the field for the Fiesta Bowl in January of 2019. So after the competition is over, we will get the contact information for the winners and then make sure to reach out to them in December of 2018 to get them on the field for their on-field presentation. For educators, we do have most of the information needed uploaded on our website there. You can review the contest rules and guidelines, important dates, what the judging will be like, competition details, support, and also the media release forms that you need to sign are on the website. And then other frequently asked questions are there as well. Our recommended timeline for your project is listed below. I won't read all of them out to you, but it just kind of gives you a week 1 to 10 for you guys to kind of map out what it should look like. This is not absolutely required, but it is recommended for your presentation. Does anyone that did tune in today have any questions for us so far? I think everyone probably muted their computers, which is fine. Keith, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go ahead and end the call?
I see Janelle has a question. But before we take the questions, just a second, can you go back one slide? The slide, can you go back one slide? Okay, so this is a minimum, I stress, minimum recommended timeline. For those who have not done this before, there is a lot of work to do if you want to be successful. And so some people start as soon as they start the school year and go right through past Christmas. If you attempt to do it in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, it's an interesting exercise, but you're not going to do very well as a team. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing is I sent out a reminder about the FAQs that needs to go on the website. Is there any chance of bringing that up on this presentation while people ask questions?
I will email all of that information out with this video that we have done now, so they'll have the actual Word doc with them in the email once the conference is over.
Yeah, but everybody who enters the competition needs to have it. So those people that are not on this call need to have that.
Yeah, once the call's over, we recorded it, so we'll be able to send the call and the question sheet to them via email at the end of the call.
Okay, so everybody's going to get it whether they attended or not. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Janelle, you had a question.
Well, I think you just answered my question because I was wondering if we were able to get a copy of your presentation.
Yep, as soon as the call's over, we've been recording the whole thing, so we'll just end the call and then email it out to all of the teachers that have already signed up with their teams and then teachers who have not signed up yet.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, that concludes our virtual training. Thank you so much, Keith, for being here to lead the presentation, and everyone else that tuned in. We appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, email us, or the number at the bottom is my number, so go ahead and call me and I can help you get things sorted out and make sure that we're ready to go for the preliminary competition.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.